I love talking about court cases. Let's talk about the DIFC Court of Appeal, which has recently clarified, with everything going on around us, regional tensions, shipping disruptions, delayed projects, two words appearing in commercial discussions: force majeure, words you have surely heard by now. A lot of businesses hear that phrase and immediately think, maybe we can pause the contract, delay payment, or suspend our obligations. But legally, that is usually where the real problem starts, because that's not exactly the case. Force majeure is not an escape route from a bad commercial situation. We know we find ourselves in these situations sometimes. The key question is always the same: what obligation has actually become impossible to perform? Now, a recent DIFC Court of Appeal case involving a restaurant tenant and a developer landlord has made this distinction very, very clear. The tenant argued that the April 2024 Dubai floods disrupted the premises, affected the business model, increased financial pressure, and caused an investor to walk away. Commercially, that is absolutely serious, of course, but the court focused on the legal obligation itself. Now, was the tenant prevented from carrying out works? Was it legally blocked from operating? Or was the issue ultimately just non-payment of rent? These are kind of quite crucial questions. That distinction really mattered when it came to the court case. The court made clear that force majeure may assist, so genuinely becomes impossible, but where the obligation is simply to pay rent, the position is really very different. In other words, a financial difficulty alone is usually not enough to declare force majeure and get out of the situation. The court looked closely at the timing of the situation, which was the floods, the 2024 April floods. Payment defaults had already started before the flooding event, which weakened the argument of the restaurant owner quite significantly. That's an important practical point for businesses. You also have to see the intention, what has happened in the past, what has been the behavior. Courts will usually ask the question, when did the disruption actually happen? Did it truly prevent performance? Was the party already in default before the event that they claimed, in this case force majeure of the floods? And was proper notice given under the contract? So in practice, force majeure can still matter enormously. Obviously, it's something we add in all our contracts. For example, where a supplier physically cannot deliver goods because a port is closed, or where lawful restrictions make access to a project site impossible. We also added pandemic and epidemic into our definitions of force majeure with COVID. But this judgment now is a reminder that not every commercial difficulty becomes a legal force majeure event, especially when the obligation is simply payment, because contracts do not pause automatically during a crisis. Now, do they? You have to have the conversation, you have to write to each other, you have to notify the other party. And before stopping any payments or suspending obligations, issuing termination notices, business should always check both the contract wording and the governing law carefully. So to my mind, this has now become an extremely good judgment to refer to. And here's another take on force majeure that you probably didn't consider. Thank you so much for watching Think Tank this week.